How's everyone doing now? Get there? Okay. So in our iMath, AS, or rational reasoning, it's got many different names, but our online homework system, I see there's about 92 as of earlier this morning that have registered, which is good, but I think we have 100 in the class, or maybe a little bit more. So if you haven't registered, please get on, because it's really the only way to get through the homework, which is, again, getting through that homework is going to help you understand and prepare you for the test, because the tests are worded that way. So I'm going to share with you a few updates I made this morning. This is what's there, so showing you some resources that are available to you. We'll go over a few homework questions, because I have received a few repeatedly that I know what's going on there. I try not, when you send me an email, just to give you back an answer, because oftentimes that doesn't help. I mean, it gets you the answer, gets you through it, but I want you to also understand it. So some of those I purposely say, well, let's talk about it in class, so it'll help us move forward. So first of all, there is a special Pathways tutoring lab. It's online, so that's the first thing. This is new. I kind of haven't really looked it over, but it'll get you there through Zoom. It's manned by other instructors of this course and TAs specifically trained in this content. It's not that you can't get help in the other math tutoring centers, except those people aren't trained, and they may sort of just give you the answer or work you through a problem without getting you to think through the stuff of variables. That might be fine, so I'm not saying don't do that. It's just here's a way that there's people that are sort of trained in how to do it. And so you come down here, and we do have a schedule of when folks will be available. You can actually click on this, and it takes you to a linked version of it. So if the times ever get updated, that's where they'll be updated on this link. This that we have back here is an image, so this probably won't change unless it's significant enough. But it can tell you when there will be someone there. It doesn't tell you who's available. I'll just be upfront. I didn't sign up for a time slot, because the only time they had is when I have my my office hours already, and those were already taken by someone else. And I said, I'll handle it differently. But what I'll do is, if you want to get a hold of me, I've got office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to about 5:45 in my office here on campus, so that's a good time to come by and see me. If you maybe have a break earlier in the afternoon, contact me. I could meet you at my office. I have another class at a different campus until about noon, but then from noon till 6, when I have my next classes, I'm just hanging out for the most part. Okay, so we can meet up if you need to talk about things. We can do that. Also, as you're going to see now, as we transition to this stage of the class, you're going to get more and more time here in class to be working on things, asking questions, and moving forward. Okay, so this is a Zoom version, and it's available to you. Questions about that? Okay, give it a try. Maybe just pop in just to see what it's like, and all the students in this class have this, so you might either get placed, there might be others in there at that time. You'll find there might not be anybody, but go ahead and use that. The other thing I posted is, this is the schedule that's also in Canvas. It's from the syllabus. So this is what I want you to kind of use as a timing device more than due dates and everything. So these are what we need to work through. I believe I had the due dates for this first section was last night at 11:59. You each have over 100 late passes, because I added 100 to everybody. So you start off with 20, and I gave you all an extra 100. So you have enough late passes. What you do is, when you go in there, it says this is closed. Do you want to use a late pass? Just say yes. And it's supposed to give you 120 additional minutes to work on it. Again, that's based off of the due date. So the longer you wait, you may have to, if you're 2 days late already, you'll need to use 2 late passes. But again, I'll give you more. I'm not going to worry about that. But do try to stay on track, because that's what we're going to do just a little bit, is we'll look at any questions from this first part. We've got 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. I'll do a brief introduction to it. Again, just kind of highlighting what kind of resources we have for that. And then we get working on it. And then what we'll do on Thursday's class is we'll start off and see if there's any questions overall for these that we could take a quick look at. But the goal is this week to get through these 3 lessons and homeworks. I did get a couple questions about the lessons. The lessons you can either do or not do, part of them, do all of them, whatever. It's kind of, that's up to you. What I'm basing the points off of is your completion of the homework. Completion of the homework to 70%, okay, will get you 100%. Now, it's okay to keep working until you get 100%, but there'll be a few that maybe you get wrong or you didn't understand. Those aren't going to hurt your grade, but again, those are ones you'd want to ask some questions and hopefully get through it. But there'll be a few that, you know, the way it checks it, and you'll see in here as we go down, why is my answer being marked wrong? Sometimes it's just a rounding error. So sometimes it's not, because it only lets up to a 0.1% error. And so some of these you need like 5 decimal places if you want to do it exactly. So it explains here, like if the answer was square root of 7, you plug into your calculator, it'll approximate it to 2.65, but the system will mark 2.65 as actually wrong. You go, wait, I know I worked this right. But if you put in square root of 7, it'll mark it right because it's got that accuracy to those decimal places. So some of those types of things are more technical issues. Yes, you did if you put 2.65 because you put in your calculator, yes, you understood what you were doing, that's good, but work with this. We'll try to work with the system. Okay. When we get to the test, it's going to be multiple choice. All you have to do is choose the right answer. So in some sense, it's easier on that way. We don't have to worry about those technical issues so much as long as you can identify them. Okay. So that's there. I've also moved, the calendar is still here, but I moved it down to the very bottom, or almost the bottom, because what I really want you doing is using my calendar from the syllabus and say, okay, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and then when you come down here, it's got all the modules. We want to go to module 2. We click on that, and then we've got all our modules all the way to 2.7. And again, each module, we'll look at 2.4, has 2 parts. It has the lesson, which is to kind of learn it. And I did get a few emails from older students in other classes and stuff, and they said, well, you know, I can't teach myself math. Well, yes, we always teach ourselves things. It may be that a teacher gives a lecture, and this class is a little different, but we're always, where the learning goes on is inside of us. So what we're going to have you do is use those lessons as learning resources. Remember, there's applets in here. Let's just take a quick look. As we go through the lessons, you don't have to work everything, but it's sometimes helpful as we see these. They have things we can work with. And we see as one varies, the other varies. And we see things changing over here. So this is giving us this idea of a constant rate of change, slope. And again, you might have learned it by a formula, slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's correct, but it's wanting you also to see that as x varies, the change in y varies. So there's these 2 different things. There's a change of x, there's actually the x coordinate, there is a change in y, and there's actually the y coordinate. So that's kind of what this is getting you through is what is, you know, how is x changing. Again, don't worry too much about these, except that you're learning how to kind of work through them. Let me see if there's any, yeah, and we get down to the rules eventually. So you can kind of scan over, look ahead. You know, sometimes that's what the lessons are. I would kind of suggest go ahead and at least scan over it and see what it's doing, and then maybe go back and play with it. And so now it's talking, okay, as the side of a square looks, then you've got perimeter. You're probably also going to talk about area. But that's what the lessons get us into. And then again, when we're thinking of points, and I guess it'll be 25% of the total grade, so that's a pretty big chunk. So getting the homework will get you all of it. So that I'm assuming you're using some of the lesson to get through there, but maybe not. It's okay. As long as you get all the homework, we're just kind of looking at the end of the road. Um, and again, that would be here is the homework, but I'm just going to pull it up and you'll see that, now it's dealing with perimeter in terms of S, so it's dealing with that very applet we were looking at. And if we're not quite sure, maybe we go back and play with that a little bit. How does the perimeter change as the side length changes? And again, there's 4 sides, so yeah, it's 4 times S, right? So we'll be able to see those things. Sometimes you'll be able to pull these up and you read through it. If you understand and just want to work through it, great, go for it. If you're getting it, that's good. You'll find places where you maybe need to go back more and work through the lessons, okay? So, but you'll see the homeworks doesn't have the applets or the things to play with. That's in the lessons. But use those 2 together and you can go back and forth as need be, okay? Any questions about progress so far? Okay. So that's kind of the progress on the homework. Oh, there's one more. There's other, as I go back to the main, so I kind of go up here, it gets me back to the main. One other section that I sort of stumbled on, the video links. Showed us collapse, but here's another way, and maybe instead of the lessons or in addition to the lessons, there are sort of these mini lectures, these mini videos on each of the sections. So Mod 2, what are these? These are not innovations, investigation 1. So these come from the workbook, I believe. But you can take a look at it and then there's a video there. Again, remember when you run the videos, you can speed it up. And I don't think it's coming out there, it's coming into my ear, but it will walk, there's actually someone talking through like a lecture, and you can get that to a speed where it's going fast enough that you're not getting too bored, and yet slow enough that you can hear it, you can back them up and stuff. And again, these are just resources. I don't like the word mandatory. The only thing that's mandatory is that you learn algebra and trig in here in a way that's going to help you be successful in calculus. That's going to help you in your field of study. Okay. So these are here for you. And so, and I'll be honest, I never clicked on that link before this morning. And I thought, whoa, there's some cool videos here. Okay, so these are all here. And if you click on that link, it gets it out of the way. And then we've got rates. And then there's this, what I want to remind you about, there's these skills practice activities. What those are there for is in the exams, there'll be 3 or 4 questions that are more skills-based that are taken from these. I don't think I have these incorporated as points. We could, usually the department allows us to have like a few 2 to 3% extra credit, so we could do that if need be, but there's a number of questions. There's usually about 40 questions. These are all skill-based things. These are not done in the like the variable stuff, the conceptual learning. These are just kind of skill-based things. And you'll see they're mostly multiple choice, so they just get you on track with sort of rules. Which of the following represents the product of 5, 5, 5? So this is all multiplication, so yeah, we wouldn't do addition. So it's one of these. You can do it, submit it, it will answer it for you. So it's just practice doing those. So don't forget about those. You might want to put, if you get caught up or get a little bit ahead, come back and do it. You might want to save them for when we get closer to the exam. That's, kind of see what, but maybe work every other one, every third one or something to try to get through them, and then maybe go back, work the ones you didn't, just to get some practice. And hopefully you'll find them to be fairly straightforward. Okay, but those are there. But I don't, personally, if I, as you go through, as you learn things with math, it's nice to check it with a test for those of us, if you do well. I know some people don't do as well on tests, but if you get all the homework done, you'll find the tests are just very much like the homework questions. And again, in some cases, exactly like the homework questions. All right. So, good. We're about 20 minutes in. There was a question, I think it was probably in 2-1 in the homework. I think it was number 4, if I'm remembering correctly. Question 3. Yeah, this was it. Okay. So, part of lesson 2.1 had somebody, Jessica in this case, walking from her house to the bus stop. So she's at her house, she's walking towards the bus stop. Bus stop is 300 yards away. And again, each question, sometimes they randomize those, so your distance may be different. Notice I gave you 2. If Jessica's 27 yards from her house, so she's walking from her house, she's 27 yards out. How far is she from the bus stop? But when she left her house, she was 0 from the house, and how far from the bus stop? 300. And the further she gets from her house, the closer she's going to get to the bus stop. We can do it like that. And again, this system will actually, this is a better way to put it in than to actually calculate it out. You could put in 273, or you put this, and again, it'll remember it. So there's that. The thing is, they give us another one. If she's 149.4, could you actually be 149.4 yards from the house? Of course, yes. So that's one of the things this question's trying to get us to think of. It doesn't have to be integer values. When we're going, there's an well, I won't give that question away. But again, we could say we were 300 yards from the bus stop. She has walked 149.5, and there we are, she's 150.5. So it shows it to us. Again, we could leave it like this, so if we go back, we know how we calculated it, right? So far, I think nobody really had questions about these parts, but let the variable x represent Jessica's distance from her house. So that's what these 2 have been, right? Distance from her house. As she's walking toward the bus stop, as Jessica walks from her house to the bus stop, the value of x varies from, so what's the smallest value x could be? 0. When she's at her house, it's actually 0. Okay. I guess if she went out the back door, it would be negative, but thinking of that, she's going away from the bus stop, but it could be 0. And then as she gets all the way to the bus stop, how far is she from her house? The 300, because that's how far the bus stop. Now she's there, now she's 300. Remember this covariation, x is, we've got those 2 distances, should be 300. Now this is the one that was throwing, at least I got a few questions on. So how many values does the variable x assume as Jessica walks from her house to the bus stop? And again, those of you who asked this, I said, well, we know it's at least 2, right? Because we were given 2 values. So how many is it? Is it 3, 4, 280, 300? It's infinite. Think of a number line. How many numbers are there between any 2 numbers? Actually an infinite number, because you can always cut it in half, and you can cut that in half, you can cut the half in half. It gets very small. It's an infinite number. That's kind of a hard concept, but between any 2 points, there's actually still an infinite number of points. And there's an infinite. So I'm not sure how we do it, but this is where maybe we click here, and there's the infinity symbol. I think that'll work. Again, sometimes I don't know either, and that's why we have this. We'll try it out. Sometimes I'll look up what you're doing. The system will tell me what it's looking for. I go, oh, it wanted this instead of that. We were putting in a right answer, but it's not what it is, and then you can submit it, and it marked it all correct. And that's the advantage I have, is I can just show the answer as well as I go through these things. So sometimes when we're working together, especially a little bit later in the class, it does this thing with the Ferris wheel thing, and I'm not always certain exactly what it's asking, and sometimes we'll, it wanted this thing instead of that thing, but because there oftentimes can be 2 answers. So that one threw a few people. Notice it puts it in at 0, 0, so you'll learn some little shortcuts, but remember this little yellow arrow thing, if you click on that, that will oftentimes give you some exact things that you can plug in. Okay, so it's just kind of getting used to it. And that's how this class runs is, yes, you can get behind a week, yes, you can get ahead a week or more, but the goal is we're rolling towards that test date to be ready to take the test. Okay, and the best is to get all the homework done as you go, or at least 70% of each assignment, then you'll get the full points. The full points for the assignment and for the lesson. But again, we're wanting you to focus on the learning part and just kind of look, we got this big block of time to the first exam, let us do as well as we can. Does anyone remember what happens if you get to that first exam and don't do as well as you would like? Is that the end of the trail for you? What's that? The resurrection final. So when we take the final, you'll be retested on one again, and you'll have that opportunity. If you do better on that portion of the final, you get a 90, a 95, you get 100%. I had some students, they got 100% on the final portion, allowed me to take that 40 or the 30, because they just didn't do well in that first one. That 30 all of a sudden becomes 100%. So it's kind of like, it's just keep going. We're not going to penalize you for not doing well in the beginning part and then finally catching up. What we're going to do is assess you off of where you end up. So there's all this time, so just keep going after it. Okay, keep using these resources, the videos, the lessons, and then getting through the homework, kind of understanding how they are. And as we get to the practice tests, we will also have those before the test, but we'll do those a little bit later. You'll start to see that the questions are very similar. They're going to have probably a new set of tests, but I usually get them about a week before because they need to do any editing, and I will look them over and I will make sure in our reviews that we go over each type of test, each type of question from the test. And there may be some that we've worked on that were difficult that are not on the test. I'll let you know that. I'll say this was kind of a concept we all were struggling with. But don't worry about that one. Do worry about this one. Okay, so I'll let you know as we go through being here in class. And again, these each are being recorded, so if you're not here, for whatever reason, watch the videos. Again, the nice thing with the video, you can speed it up and skip the commercials and all that kind of stuff, and just get the quick thing of what we're doing. Okay, so that was one. Did anyone else have another question in particular that they'd like to take a look at? Yes.
So I wanted to go back into the assignment and see which one I was confused with, but I could not get back in and see unless I use a late pass, and I did, and then it's like now you can't anymore. So I don't know how to.
It should let you use it should still let you use a late pass, especially if you didn't get even if you got 100%. But let me do one thing. Let me check the settings, because sometimes it might be a setting. This was 2.1, right? So, and I'll just show you. So yeah, 1/16/11/59 it cut off. It says keep open for ungraded practice after the due date. So you should be able to still, everyone should, without a late pass, should be able to get in. That doesn't mean it's happening. So, but it's supposed to stay open. And then there's this place down here, time limit and access control. Let me just make sure. It allow late passes after the due date. There's an unlimited number allowed, and it's not going to give any setup, so you don't get any penalties for using late passes. So maybe we can try again and see if, because sometimes it's just a little tricky. I've used this system because it's an open source system developed by a guy at Walla Walla University or college up in Walla Walla, Washington, and he's made it available. The Scottsdale Community College has been using it for about 10 years. They have it on their server. This is on Greater Learning server. So I'm familiar with the software and actually have done a little bit of programming in it. So it's a little quirky. So we'll go through that. but good question. So we'll take a look at that. Any others that you think that maybe didn't get answered in the forum? Oh, that's the other thing I want to show you.
There was this question with the vectors, but I can't quite locate it now.
Okay, I think I saw one this morning. Yes.
In 2.3, question 3 or 4 also.
Sure, let's do that first. And then there was a question in the forum on the vector ones, and the way it was asking it, I wasn't quite sure, but I didn't have time to take a look at it. So 2.3, right? Okay, so we'll go into the homework. Question,
It was like 3 or 4.
okay, let's take a look. So this is this one,
Yes, it's that one.
or that, okay.
The one with the graph.
The one with the graph, okay. So let's just kind of walk through this one, again, together. And again, maybe you haven't gotten here, but you can kind of take it to your notes. Suppose the value of y and the value of x vary together at a constant rate of change. So it's y, the change in y is 0.75 times the change of x, and y is 1.5 when x is 3. Okay, so we're given that. We are given that y equals 1.5 and x equals 3. Plot a point. So the first thing is there's this difference here that we're looking at between a fixed point space and how it changes. A change is really always involving 2 points, or how we get from one point to the next one. So what we're going to do is see if it'll let me. Dot. Okay. 1.5 and 3. So it wants us to. Now sometimes these ones, they're nice little activities, but you could be close. But again, remember it's got the high accuracy, and so it might, especially I'm a little scared about this 1.5. Is it really going to count it or not? But we'll see. So sometimes it might mark this part wrong. Suppose the value of x varies from x equal 3 to x equals 2.5. So x is changing. How much did the value of x change? How do we calculate change? What's that?
Final minus initial.
Okay, we subtract the two, and again, go with the final, whether we're getting bigger or smaller, because, so 5.25 minus 3. Oops. 5.25 minus 3. So we can just go ahead and put it in. Again, it calculates it for us. We could also just put in 2.25, however you want to do that. I'm going to kind of go this way. By how much did the value of y change over this interval? Well, since x changed by 2.25, how do we calculate how y is going to change?
Input the values of y and x into y is equal to mx plus b.
You can, however, that's a little more advanced. We're going to actually get the linear equation next. But up here, we were told that we can calculate the change in y by taking 0.75 times the change of x. Okay, so for this one, we know the change of x is 2.25. So if we come back up here, 0.75 times 2.25. 0. I think that works up to be the times and then 2.25. And so it's calculated again to me. And again, where it might be getting marked wrong is if I did this on my calculator, I said, okay, I'm going to round that to 1.69, it might mark that as wrong because it wants more decimal places. So sometimes it's better, that's why I said it's to the advantage to put it. And then what is the value of y when x is 2.25? Well, this 1.6875 is how y has changed, right? Well, what was y starting at? Looks like y started at 3. Wait a minute, did I get those backwards? Y is 1.25 when x is, I plotted this wrong. Anyone else notice that? See, I have dyslexia, I had it backwards. Hopefully you noticed it, but if not, so x is 3, y is 1.5, so it would have marked that wrong. I can't clear just that, so let's clear all of it. We replot that one. Okay. So that sometimes you get those. So what is the value of y when x equals 5.25? Well, we're gonna add this, cause that's the change, right? It's a positive change to what the original value of y was, and what was y? Y was 1.5. Where is that? Oops, I'm in the wrong place. 1.5 plus 1.6875. And again, you'll just find that you'll want to enter as many decimals. Show the answer. And we're, again, I get this nice check. But what I'm going to assume, let's submit the answer. It's marked it all right. That you were probably getting the right answers down here, but maybe you were rounding at 2 or even 3 decimal places might not be enough. Does that help?
That was the wrong question, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I posted in the focus group whatever it was.
Okay,
I thought that was one.
okay.
But thanks for explaining.
Sure. But it's helping us to see, a lot of times you're gonna say, I think I got it right, but it's marking it wrong. What's wrong? Well, decimals, 4 or 5 decimal places. Maybe it was this one. But we could take a look maybe as we go. There was one more question. Oh, there was one on, in fact, let me come back here. And I'll make a little comment. At the bottom of each question, I guess let's go any question. There are 2 options. You can message the instructor about this question. And what that does is it sends a copy of the question to me, to my email, and I can see it and answer it. Or actually, it's in here, it's into this messaging system. So when I come in, I see I have a message, and I can respond to those. However, if you post the question to the forum, I get the same stuff, I get the copy, but what I'm able to do is that when I answer this, other people are able to see it as well. Okay, and so it's, and not only that, other people are actually able to answer it. So if you come in and you check out a forum and you know an answer, go ahead and put something in there. What I'm going to ask you to do, sometimes people will just say, okay, I'll submit this, but this is just giving me the question. I don't know what you've tried. I don't know what part of the question, and I just don't understand any of this. It's not a good place for a conversation. Okay. If you want, you say, could you go over this in class? That's because that will hold it. So if you're not quite even sure about this, we'll talk about this. But if you could put some kind of question, I tried this and it's not, for the B part, it's not working out or something. Just, a brief question, it makes it a little bit easier, okay, for us who are going through. And then there are forums, and you'll see that the forums are based on each of the modules. So Module 2 has a forum. Now, that's for all of Module 2. So far we have 8 threads, 15 posts. So each time you post a question, that makes a new thread, and we can go through these. And we see who's, in here. And then, again, as we answer a question, like, maybe it was this one, question 2.1, and it tells me what sections that it's in. Let's see, maybe was it this one? And again, they're there, and sometimes, they've been answered, sometimes not. If not, by class time, we could go over any of these in class, but this is where, let's see, here, there's 2 responses here, so I'll click on this one. So how do you answer parts A, B, C, and D? Okay, and there were nice long question here, and I just, so we can interact this way. So forums is the best place to post something. You can send things directly to my email. However, it doesn't, then you have to do screenshots, and what I will do is redirect you to post in the forum, because any type of homework question, if I do it in the forum, it's going to help more people. You and people. It'll be the same response either way. But let's try to stick with the forums as much as possible. And I think sometimes that we have some of the TAs that are assigned to this, they go through and check some of the forums. Maybe that was that longer explanation. So, but we can take advantage of that resource. Let's see, where are we? A little over half an hour. So how are we feeling? How are we doing? Doing okay? Not too stressed yet? Got a couple weeks before you have to really worry about anything, right? We can keep on working, but try to keep on track as best you can. Because again, we have three. You can let it go for a while, but then you let it go for 3 weeks, then you've got 9 sections you got to get through. And if you can get through 9 sections in a short period of time, I would suggest do that first and then take a break, rather than wait 3 weeks and then try to get caught up. Because that's where the stress is because then it's the content is not easy to get through, even if you know what you're doing. There's reading and it's time consuming. But the goal is that you're thinking through things and you're learning it deeper, not just memorizing things or just little short things, but actually understanding it so that it will help you when you get into calculus, which is going to be about changing variables. So it's taught in that way. And I've got a colleague I've worked with down in University of Texas at Austin, and I mentioned his name to the professor who basically has spent the last 20 or 30 years making up these systems. She knew him, so I said, yeah, she contacted me. He says, oh, she's one of the nationally renowned pre-calculus professors for her work. So because she's a math educator, she's not a math researcher, she's a math education researcher. So she studies about how to learn math. I know she uses different language in here, but it was kind of, okay, my friend over here who I worked with says she's one of the, she's renowned, then it's good. So we're kind of doing something that's leading edge, but we're hoping, and the research that she's been doing shows that when you get to calculus, it's going to put you in much better stage. And again, it's a little bit at the beginning, and not just from I've only taught this one semester before, but I did see this. The first section wasn't so well. Partly, I'll take it. That was me because I didn't understand the system either. As I got to work with the system instead of trying to work against it, the second test got better. The third test got even better, and by the final, I was getting a lot of 100%, or 90, up there. And basically anyone who stuck it through got mostly B's and A's, but there was a few that, up to the final were like in failing status, but they did the work at the end and they were able to, with that resurrection final, they were actually able to pass the class with either C, B, or A. And so it will happen. And the goal is that not only will you get a nice grade, but this way of learning will help you when you get into your calculus class to be successful as well. Okay. So I'm gonna, and this is again probably the longer. Got about 30 minutes. For Thursday, we'll start off with questions from 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 if there are any, but we'll quickly move into giving you time to individually work on things, individually ask questions. I'll have my system open. If we need to check what are they looking for, we'll do that. But just keep moving forward. And our goal this week, by next Monday, try to get through 2.6, from 2.1 to 2.6. So, and again, if you need, I don't think you're going to need late passes for a while because it'd be hard to use up 120 of them. I've seen some people are using them, but main thing is make sure you're signed in. Then one other piece of advice I have, because is make a bookmark for this so it's easier to get to. I have gotten contact from a few who logged in and then they had problems logging in because getting to the right place. So I know all that, but just get used to going in there. I'm trying to make this sort of a one-stop that if because you don't actually have to go into Canvas to get here, right? So you might just get logging in. So now I've got it set up where you can kind of pace yourself right here, knowing where you need to be. And if you're, you get down here and you still got to get caught up. Like next week, we've got 4 sections, but some are very related, some are shorter. But we'll get you there. Keep moving forward. Try to plan out yourself, and if you can, something's coming up. you got a family reunion, whatever, or try to get ahead, and so that you can take that time off when it comes, and not worry, or if it doesn't, that, or plan to get caught up afterwards. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop recording. Hopefully I was recording. Yeah, I was recording.